Regardless of who wins the HOH, I'm just happy that this past week consisted of players saying, the heck with it, I'm going to play my own game and do what I gotta do. I'm so proud that Davon won her first veto. I was happy that David saved himself with the disruptor power and he played it off. Even though a lot of people thought that was corny, I thought it was hilarious because it really drove people crazy. And I was glad that Kevin was snatched off the block. Yeah, I heard what he did earlier today, but still. The point is, the country club, aka the committee, did not get what they wanted, and that's all that matters. See, I'm here to talk about gameplay, but at the same time, I'm not a fan of players who think that they are entitled to winning the game or entitled to things in the game. I'm from the old school where I remember players had to work super duper hard. I'm from the old school fandom where one particular power, the coup d'etat, was created to completely decimate a player's HOH reign. Yeah, I'm talking about Chima. I'm from that old school. I'm not a big fan of the new school, even though I watch it. If you've been watching my videos, you know how I feel about that. But let me know what you think. Anyways, for those of you who don't know, I'm Sage Valentine. Welcome to my channel, and this is my eviction night review for week 6 of CBS's Big Brother Season 22, All Stars number 2, episode number 19, and I will talk about episodes 17 and 18. So let's just get down to it. So pretty much last week, Bailey was evicted. We get to the HOH competition, which was called Power Trip. Everyone fell in this order. Day, David, and Ian all ended up as have-nots. Memphis, Enzo, Kevin, Tyler, Nicole, Cody, and Danny, who ended up winning the HOH competition. Before this, apparently Christmas apologized to Day. Day apologized to Christmas, and they both agreed or lied to one another and said that they won't nominate each other if one wins the HOH. But Day, again, let us know that she is not working with Christmas. Danny did not want to win the HOH, and yet she won it. Funny. And Davon basically faked the phone, faked crying so she would look weak. A lot of people online thought that she was stupid. Me personally, I thought that was hilarious. I'm like, that is hilarious that they believe that. Anyway, Tyler hopes that Danny doesn't want to get her revenge on him. All right. But keep in mind that the only reason Danny won the HOH was because Nicole and Cody both fell down because they decided that they didn't want to be HOH. So she was pretty much the last Mohican up there. So Danny knows that by winning HOH, she's going to end up pissing people off. Now, Nicole says she trusts Danny, so she should not end up on the block. Now, Danny hugged Day and let Day know, listen, you're safe this week, you're fine. So then David and Day are talking, and Davon's like, listen, we are going to work on Danny because we can crack Danny, and by cracking Danny, then we can break right into that alliance. Was that a smart thing to do? Yeah, for the week. I don't know how it's going to go next week, but for the week, that was pretty smart. Ian says he feels okay with Danny. It's amazing. It's amazing how people in this house feel safe, and then all of a sudden they end up out of the house. That's Big Brother for you. Kevin said he's worried, but he also likes Danny. Again, another person who felt safe and ended up on the block. Danny says she's scared. She doesn't want to play too fast. She knows if she targets Tyler, she has to swing, but not miss. And she missed. So, Cody suggests that Danny nominate David and Kevin, which are easy choices for Danny so she could lay back. Me personally, I'm just like, Danny, you are about to follow yet another trend of easy nominations for that alliance, but eventually you guys are going to have to go after each other, and why not go after somebody who is a huge threat? Tyler. Going after the easy players, that's not the nature of BB. People have done it recently, but that's not true BB. True BB is getting true blood on your hands. That's why I don't even like when players now say that they don't want to get blood on their hands. True BB was getting your hands bloody all the way up to the elbow. So, 6 weeks in, I'm just like, a big target needs to be nominated. Kevin says that he is not after Danny. So I was just trying to figure out why Kevin was nominated at this point, but I think I figured it out. And again, it's another week of someone playing someone else's game. So they thought. So Danny told Cody that Tyler is after her and she wants him out, but Cody's like, no, don't nominate Tyler. And I'm just like, at this point, she should realize that there's something going on with Tyler that she doesn't know. But she didn't think about that. She said she'll nominate Tyler if Kevin or David wins the veto. Now, Cody doesn't want Tyler nominated, and the reason is because if Tyler gets nominated and he's booted out of the house, it will split up the two alliances within the committee. And he'll become a target because that's how the game goes. And I wish it would happen because change is good and chaos in the Big Brother house is good. Because things have gone the way the committee wanted it to for the past 6 weeks. Things gotta change. They really do. So then we get two different segments. One of Danny and Day pranking Cody and scaring him, and Kevin's segment about LGBTQ IAP representation. Alrighty, so Tyler's talking to Danny to see what she plans on doing, and he claims like he'll understand if she nominates him, but really right now is not the time. And I'm just like, if not now, then when? When? Because if you let him get too far, you're not going to be able to get him. And after this week, if he ends up winning HOH, it's going to be a mess. But anyway, Danny tells Nicole that she will nominate Kevin and David, and she is going to basically say there is a bigger plan. But she's afraid to upset Christmas. I'm just like, why are you afraid to upset Christmas? Like, what's so scary about Christmas in this game? The smarter move would have been to nominate Christmas because of that craziness last week. But again, Danny is just doing what she's told. And I'm upset that she did what she was told. I'm really sad about that. But anyway, Danny tells Nicole that she doesn't trust Tyler, and Nicole says it's too early to go after Tyler. If not now, then when? When are you going to go after him? Because he's safe this week, so he's really going to start gunning for that veto, and he's really going to gun for the HOH unless Memphis wins, because according to that video, it seemed like Memphis was about to win. But I digress. And if Danny doesn't go get him, he's going to get her. But Danny doesn't want to make waves. And I'm just like, Danny, this is going to come right back around and bite you right on the behind. So Danny tells Kevin that she wants to work with him, but she's afraid of the power. She wants him to be a pawn. Kevin's not cool with that. No, because what is this, like this would be his 4th time on the block if memory serves. And he says that he feels expendable, and she says that she doesn't want him out. And I'm just like, lady, you're lying. So lying. So then Danny talks to Tyler to cover herself, and they make a, quote, verbal agreement not to go after each other until the final 6. Yeah, Tyler's so gunning for Danny, it's ridiculous. As soon as he gets the chance. And the edit makes it seem like he's okay with her and himself being nominated. At some point, no, he's not. Alrighty, so did I forget to say, though, that the committee was very salty because Danny did not put Davon up? Or no. In fact, I'm going to get to that in the next episode. The committee is salty because Davon is safe this week. Super salty. Like high blood pressure type salty. That's how they felt all week. So, Danny ended up nominating Kevin and David, basically because winning HOH is a catch-22, and she repeated the same line people have been saying all year. I don't talk game with you, that's why you're on the block. I hope somebody finally picks up on that line because it sounds familiar because they all keep saying it. Everyone who's been HOH so far keeps saying the same thing. She won't go after Tyler because it's too early and she needs to play the game. And basically, as I said before, she's playing Cody in the committee's game. Kevin's upset he feels alone and disposable. David has a power. He said he's going to disrupt the house, and that's exactly what he does in episode 18. So much happens in this episode, and I was just in love with the episode as I was with the updates and the feeds this week and this weekend. Well, the feeds that we could see, because Big Brother decided to cut down the feeds, and I'm just like, why? Why? People are paying all this money for the feeds. They should be able to see what they want, right? I don't know what BB is doing. Anyway, Danny said once again that David and Kevin are the only ones she doesn't strategize with, and if the veto's used, then she'll put up Tyler. Tyler is worried he'll probably be backdoored. David said he's going to use his power. Memphis puts his arm around David's neck, which looked normal, but honestly, like, he's been kind of like antagonizing David all season. This is a shout out to all the people who don't have the feeds and don't really pay attention to Twitter and everything. He's been bugging David. And on a side note, I just found out that Memphis, even though I haven't turned 36 yet, Memphis is about a year or two older than me, and I always thought that Memphis was in his 40s. Isn't that crazy? Yeah. I was like, he's only like a year or two older than me? I was just as shocked as everybody else. But anyway, Big Brother doesn't show, like, one part, though, during the veto competition where Memphis yells in David's ear, and I'm going to tell you exactly what he said before I continue on, because I did take that down in my notes. He said that he yelled, "Congratulations, you popped your cherry," and kind of patted David on the back or kind of hit him on the shoulder. Either way, they said that David's shoulder was bothering him. I swear Memphis needs to just leave David alone and leave his hands to himself. So anyway, Kevin has hope that he can convince Danny not to use him as a pawn. David puts on a whole performance to convince people that he did not, or he's not using this power. He doesn't have this power, this disruptor power. And he starts by making himself cry. Cody and Enzo don't like the Tyler backdoor option. It would be very bad. The nominations need to stay the same. Danny, Christmas, and Cody chat about the powers. I'm laughing because I'm like, Cody, you're in the room with two chicks that have powers. And you're not picking up on the conversation at all, dude. But I can't say that I'm surprised, man, because, like, I think Cody's looking at this game like he's running things. He's not paying attention. That's one thing about Derek. Derek would have picked up on that conversation regarding the powers. He would have picked up on it. I can say that. The disruptor power is unleashed by David. Danny is upset. The house is upset. But I'm like, you gotta expect the unexpected, folks. Everyone learns that David is saved. He cannot be named as a replacement nominee. Whoever thought of that? Whoever thought of that little caveat for that power? Kudos to you. Danny has to name a new nominee, so she makes something up and she names Tyler. And she's worried, and she should be. And Kevin's even more worried now that he's next to Tyler, and Cody's pissed, and Tyler said he's not surprised, but he could save himself with the veto now. Danny says she doesn't want him gone, or so she says at this point. She's like, if he leaves, this way he won't target her. But Tyler doesn't believe her. He's like, I need to win the veto. Everybody's freaked out. David's lying, saying, oh, I don't know. Like, did you save me? Did you save me? Hey, Happy. Did you save me? Nobody believed that crap at all. Nice try, though, David. Nice try. Anyway, David's basically being funny and extra, and no one believes him. Davon was like, dude, if I had that, wouldn't I have used it last week? Like, come on. So anyway, Danny does some damage control with Christmas, but she secretly wants Tyler out. Danny says that Christmas and Memphis are the best pawn options. And I believe it's Christmas who wonders why Danny's only picking from the committee. Well, I mean, she did promise Davon that she's safe, but still, it's pretty telling that she's picking from the committee. And then we get a segment of Nicole's Slapotard punishment. Then we get to pick the players for the veto competition. Danny chooses Day. Tyler chooses Ian. Kevin chooses Enzo, and Davon's like she's going to try as hard as she can to win the veto because she doesn't want Danny to pick a fourth person. And according to the edit, Davon wanted to keep the noms the same. Truthfully, she wasn't sure what she was going to do, but she thought a little bit about shaking up the house. We get to the veto competition, which is the micro brews, and Davon won her first veto competition. I was so proud of her. She didn't give up, but the special effects for that competition, Big Brother, a mess as always. So Kevin hopes that Davon uses the veto to save him. Danny wants the nominations to stay the same. Kevin tells Davon, listen, I will owe you but Davon says, listen, if I end up using it, we're going to look like a duo. And you know what happened the last time when it looked like I was in a duo? She says she's got to figure it out. So then Davon talks to Danny. And Davon's like, listen, I don't want to toss away one of my numbers. I don't want to lose Kevin. Now, the one thing they didn't show you in episode 18 was that Danny was telling all the people she was talking to, listen, Davon doesn't want to look stupid. I don't want her to look stupid and not use her veto. But it's funny how that was left out the episode, though. Shout out to the casuals. Get yourself on Twitter and pay attention. Get yourself on all these social media pages and pay attention to the conversations because you're missing it. I completely understand because I couldn't afford the feeds in the beginning. But now my feeds come with the CBS All Access app. Shout out to those who pay the $9.99. I am so sorry, you guys. This is on a side note. You guys have been going through hell because you're literally paying $10 a month for very little feeds at this point. But anyway, Christmas says it doesn't make sense to cannibalize the alliance. And Danny's like she's either going to put up Enzo or Ian as the replacement nominee. Now, the reason Enzo's not on there because Enzo basically came out and said he didn't want to be on there and he wasn't on there. So at this point, I'm kind of team Enzo because Enzo's the safest person in the house. I mean, nobody's really looking at him, so he's kind of chilling. But back to this. So Cody didn't believe that Davon would use the veto on Kevin. Ha! Danny told Cody that Day is going to use it. He's all upset. She said that she's going to have to nominate Ian and he'll end up going home. Cody said he's not going to vote out Tyler. Danny tells Nicole she'll have to put up Ian. Now, they show Nicole in this episode as well as in tonight's episode, the little clips, the flashback clips, that Nicole is all upset and emotional about Ian going home. Truthfully, she kind of put on for the cameras, number one. Number two, she also laughed at some ableist joke, and I put the fingers up, not meaning to do it, I'm just moving my hands, but she laughed at an ableist joke that Memphis made about Ian basically rocking back and forth because of his autism or his Asperger's, and the joke was not funny. And Nicole laughed. Really, Nicole wanted Ian in the house so he could continue to be her shield. And if she was up against him at the end, she could win against him. Or so she thought. Because if she had been up against Ian, Ian probably would have won over her because everybody was sick of her crying. But anyway, she's upset because her ally has to leave. Davon's ally gets to stay. And the funny thing about that segment was towards the end, an ant attacked her. And I was laughing at that clip because it was funny. There's like a video online of it. Anyway, FYI, Nicole, or I just said about Nicole laughing at the joke, my bad. So Danny acts like she has Davon's back. I'm like, yeah, after dragging her all season and telling people you wanted to target her, now all of a sudden you have her back. Right. Davon says she just wants to play her own game, and therefore she ends up using the veto. She said it's been a battle. She doesn't have any commitments to either, but she saves Kevin. Danny replaces Kevin with Ian, says that she'll campaign for Tyler to go. That's a lie. That ends up being a lie because she ends up flipping and wanting Ian now. Ian is supposedly a pawn. Everybody's upset. They said she came to play for Davon. Danny says she's after Ian. Tyler hopes that he's safe. Nicole's upset. She's like, Danny had other options. Ian is just like, a winner is on the block. I'm enraged. And I'm like, yeah, but you're a winner and you haven't done much this season. And this is All Stars. You got to do something. Like, did you forget about the other All-Star season? Like, those people didn't sit down and chill out. They had to fight, regardless of where their standing was. Like, they didn't sit up there and chill and kind of coast and sit back and kind of hang out in the hammock. Like, they really worked hard. So anyway, time for tonight's episode. And it looks like we made it to the 20-minute mark, so I won't keep you guys too long. You won't be here till 30, so bear with me. Anyway, episode 19. The question is, who's going home, Tyler or Ian? Davon says she used the veto and it's great for her games. Time to chop away at the alliance. Kevin said they needed this week, he and Day. Now the other side will fight each other. Tyler says hopefully he'll stay. Of course Tyler was going to stay. Come on. Nicole's upset that Ian's on the block. Again, Big Brother gave her this edit where they tried to make it seem like she cared about Ian as far as the game is concerned, and no, Ian was just her way, her shield, and her way to win the game. Although I still think that Ian would end up winning the game. Anyway, she said that her alliance wants Ian gone, and she's going to have to campaign now. Ian says he's worried. He doesn't buy that he's a pawn. And Nicole's talking to him, but she can't tell him anything at all because you see her allegiance to that alliance is bigger than her allegiance to Ian. That's why I didn't buy any of her tears in any of these episodes, especially tonight's episode. Danny is upset with Day because she ended up having to put up 4 nominees. Okay, Davon is... Well, Davon basically equals 1 nominee, meaning that Davon's the reason she had to put up 1 nominee. David was the reason why she had to put up the other nominee. But as for the first 2, those were her choices. So she could have put up Tyler at first, but she wanted to do this backdoor thing, and then she wanted to flip on that. So, hey, Davon's like she'll make sure that Ian ends up staying. She said it sucks that Ian is still on the block. You have to understand that Davon, Kevin, and David thought that Tyler was the one that was going to be leaving the house, that he was the big target, but it turns out it was Ian because the committee wanted Ian gone. Danny says it sucks that Ian is on the block, and she also said she still wants to work with Davon, but she sees Kevin as Davon's side guy over her. Considering all the things Danny's been doing and saying all season in regards to Davon, I'm not surprised at all that Davon decided to do what she was doing. But anyway, Ian tells Danny it's okay. Danny says she'll campaign for him, but she's lying. Ian initially was a part of an alliance early in the game with Nicole, Danny, and Cody called the 4 Prime or 4th Prime. Danny cannot go against the committee. Ian says that he needs 4 votes, and I guess he feels like he can get those, and then she'll break the tie. She wouldn't. Danny tries to mend fences with Tyler and decides not to go after him. She's willing to be best friends. I'm like, yeah, Tyler is waiting patiently to put you out the game, Danny. Ian campaigns to Memphis. He sees him as a lone wolf, but Memphis sees Ian the same way. And Ian also tells Memphis that Tyler is a top player. And that's how Ian, that's what I meant to say. Ian tells Memphis that Tyler is a top player. And Memphis says he sees Ian the same way. Ian tells Nicole about the conversation, and Memphis said that he expected that it would either be himself or Enzo on the block. So Ian's trying to figure out how the heck did he end up being on the block now. Pretty much Davon and Kevin figure out that something isn't adding up because Tyler's not campaigning. And when Kevin thought of those names, he was correct. I think he left off maybe like 2 names for the committee, but he was correct. Pretty much the episode kind of has this big edit where it makes it seem like Nicole was the one who tried to save Ian the most. No, it was David. David really worked his magic trying to convince people to keep Ian. And Tyler was pissed about that, if I remember correctly, and kind of got nasty with David. I believe it was yesterday. I think it was. Nicole is frustrated because she learns that Danny had a choice between Enzo and Ian, and she chose Ian, and she's all upset because she has to get rid of her ally. And I'm just like, you're only upset because you wanted to use him to win the game. Anyway, we get to the... Oh, forgot to say that Ian told Danny that he would only vote for her to win unless she was up against Kevin, Davon, and David. Because for those of you who don't know, apparently Ian had a problem with them. And people said, now this is not me, this is what folks said online, that Ian was saying a few problematic things about Kevin, Davon, and Day. And people are calling him racist. I just read what I read. I didn't witness it because I didn't really watch the feeds today. I was mostly watching like these episodes, and then I think I was watching something. It might have been watching Marrying Millions. But anyway, yeah, so Ian said something problematic, and I did see one tweet, I think it was yesterday, where Ian was all pissed at Davon. I'm just like, why? Davon didn't have anything to do with you being on the block other than the fact that she used the veto. It was Danny's choice initially. So we get to the nomination speech. Ian said that he's given a lot to the game. He has a lot to give, and basically to keep him if he benefits their game. Tyler says that he knows he had his ups and downs. He misses Angela. He talks about how people should buy his jewelry and Angela's cookbook or whatever, and he misses. Okay, he said, don't be a clown. Keep Tyler around. So we get down to the votes, 5-3. Crispus, Enzo, Cody, and Memphis and Nicole voted against Ian. David and Kevin voted against Tyler, and Ian was evicted. And I'm just like, they blew a chance to get rid of Tyler. They're not going to get that chance again, and Enzo is going to make it to the end with Tyler. Mark my words. I believe it. Unless they're able to get one of those two out or both of those two out in the next couple weeks, I can guarantee Enzo's going to end up at the end. Ian was upset with Davon, Kevin, and David, but those are the three who tried to save him. And not only did they try to save him, they stood by the door as he left. Ian told Julie Chen that he said that Danny made a blunder, and he told Danny that, but it happens. He's upset, but he said being on the block brings new feelings. He said that people are smarter to... I don't know if he said people are smarter to keep him in the game. Let me say. I'm going to skip that. Anyway, he's not surprised about the votes. He doesn't feel betrayed. He said that everyone is good and they care. But then he threw like a crack in. I think it was about Davon and Kevin and how they're like crappy players or something. I'm just like, yeah, these so-called crappy players are still in the game though, dude. And they were more aware of what was going on in the house than you were. And you were close to that alliance. And I'm saying that from a game perspective, not a personal one. He said that if he had a chance to play in the game again, he would never play with a different strategy. It would be the same strategy. And he resisted working with Kaser because he overheard a conversation with Janelle having to do with nominating him and Nicole. And Cody said that in his goodbye message that he's sorry that he had to vote Ian out, but Ian was a threat and a winner. Davon said if it was up to me, you'd still be there. And I remember looking at his reaction, and by his I mean Ian's reaction to Cody, and he looked like he was upset at Cody, but he laughed with Dave, because I guess after leaving the house, he must have realized that Davon was one of the people who voted to keep him. Tyler tells him about the committee and the different members, and Ian learns that Nicole is also with that committee alliance. And again, I have the note that the three people who voted for him stood by the door on the way out. Pretty much Julie Chen was just surprised that he didn't get off, and he didn't, not get off, he didn't go off, and he wasn't upset. Me personally, I was just like, Ian, if you're upset, just say that you're upset. Because you seemed very upset with Davon, Kevin, and David. So if you're upset, it happens. But anyway, that's about it. I'm Sage Valentine. I'm glad I got to do this review today, headache and all, which is probably why I was flubbing up the words. But anyway, I made sure to get all this done for you guys. I love you all. Take care, and I'll be back next Thursday. So peace out. Stay safe in these COVID streets. Wear a mask, wash your hands, wet wipes, antibacterial wipes. Later. Bye, guys. Bye.